Law and neighbors. HOA Karen called the cops, but they arrested her instead. I never thought the people living just across the street would become my worst nightmare. But that morning, as the sun came up over Maple Creek Estate, everything changed. I was sipping coffee on my porch, finally proud of the new fence I'd built after months of saving. It matched the HOA guidelines, at least, according to the booklet I'd read 3 times. But to Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of Maple Creek, it was an act of rebellion. I should have seen it coming. She'd been circling my house all week, taking pictures on her phone, pretending to inspect things that weren't her business. And then, I heard her voice, sharp, loud, and filled with that tone that made your stomach tighten. "Excuse me, that fence is not regulation height," she yelled from the sidewalk. I took a deep breath. "Morning, Karen. It's approved. I followed the rules." Her lips tightened. "I am the rules," she said. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a fence. It was personal. She stormed off, phone in hand, muttering something about calling the HOA board. I didn't think much of it until later that afternoon when a letter appeared on my doorstep. A violation notice. Fine, $200. Reason, unauthorized structural change. My hands trembled. I had done everything right. Everything. I walked across the street to her house, calm, polite, trying to talk. "Karen, this has to be a mistake." I checked the HOA handbook. She didn't even open the screen door. "You can appeal it at the next board meeting," she said flatly. "Until then, pay your fine." Her eyes didn't blink. She just smiled. That smug, satisfied grin that said she wanted this fight. That night, I barely slept. How could someone have that much power over a neighborhood? By morning, I decided to record everything. Every letter, every confrontation. I even started documenting my yard work in case she claimed violations. And sure enough, within 2 days, she struck again. This time, it was about my garbage cans. Apparently, I had left them on the curb too early. She marched over again, phone in hand, recording me. "I'm reporting you," she said. "Karen," I said, trying to stay calm. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," she interrupted. "You'll learn to follow the rules my way." My jaw clenched. I could feel my heart pounding, anger rising. "Tell me, what would you do if your neighbor treated you like this? Would you ignore it or fight back? Comment below. I really want to hear your take." Days turned into weeks. The harassment didn't stop. Letters, notes, complaints. Even when I trimmed my lawn, she found something to write up. Then came the breaking point. It was Saturday. My sister had come over to help paint the front porch. We were laughing, listening to music quietly, nothing crazy. Suddenly, Karen appeared again, waving her phone. "Turn that noise down," she barked. "It's the middle of the day," I said. "We're within HOA noise limits." She didn't care. "I've had enough of your attitude," she shouted. Then, she dialed 911, right there in front of me. I couldn't believe it. "She's disturbing the peace." Karen yelled into the phone. "She's aggressive, she's threatening me." I froze. My sister's face went pale. "I didn't do anything," I whispered. 10 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up. Karen rushed to them first, putting on her best performance. "Officers, thank God you're here. She's been harassing me for weeks." The officers looked at me, then at her, then back at the house. One of them asked for my side. I calmly explained everything. The fence, the letters, the recording. Then I handed him my phone. I'd been documenting everything. Every message, every complaint, every picture she'd taken of my home. The officer nodded slowly. "You've got all this on record?" "Yes," I said. "Every single thing." He turned to his partner. They walked back to Karen. Her tone changed instantly. "Wait. No. I didn't mean." The officer raised his hand. "Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions about these complaints and your interactions with other neighbors." She stammered. "Oh, other neighbors?" Apparently, I wasn't the only one. 2 other residents had filed reports against her, one for harassment, another for filing false HOA notices. When the officer asked her to step back, she refused. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm the victim here." But the officers didn't see it that way. One of them sighed, pulled out a notepad, and said calmly, "Ma'am, you're being detained for filing false reports and harassment." Karen's jaw dropped. "What? This is insane. You can't do this. I run this community." The officer replied quietly, "Not today, ma'am." She screamed as they led her to the car, neighbors peeking through curtains, recording from porches. I stood there in shock. My sister squeezed my arm, whispering, "You did the right thing." But I didn't feel proud. I just felt drained. Months of stress, fear, and humiliation, all because of one neighbor who thought she could control everyone. As the police car drove away, the street fell silent. For the first time in months, there was peace. I looked at the fence, the same fence she'd tried to tear down metaphorically and literally, and felt tears sting my eyes. This wasn't victory. It was release. That night, I uploaded a small clip from my recordings, not to shame her, but to share what living under constant HOA bullying feels like. The comments poured in, people saying they'd lived through the same thing. Others asking, "How do you deal with a Karen like that?" And if you're watching this right now, I'll ask you the same question. Speech balloon, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed quiet or fought back like I did? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your side. And if you want to hear what happened after her arrest, trust me, it's unbelievable. Make sure you subscribe. The next part will shock you even more. You'd think after the cops drove her away, everything would go back to normal. But in Maple Creek, peace doesn't last long. That night, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Phones were out, messages flying across group chats. Did you see it? Did you hear what happened to Karen? Some people were in disbelief. Others said it was about time. For me, though, it was a strange mix of relief and guilt. I didn't want things to go that far. I just wanted her to stop. But seeing her handcuffed in front of everyone, the same woman who had terrified us for months, it left me shaken. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice echoing. I run this community. Did I go too far? Or was this just justice catching up? What do you think? Would you feel bad if it were you? Or would you sleep peacefully knowing karma did its job? Comment below. I really want to know how you'd feel. The next morning, I walked outside carefully, half expecting her to reappear. But her house was quiet. The curtains that used to twitch every time someone stepped on her lawn were still. Then I saw it. A folded paper on my porch. No envelope. Just one sentence written in big, sharp letters. "You'll regret this." My heart skipped. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a signature to know who wrote it. I took a picture of it immediately and sent it to the local police officer who handled her case. He replied, "Thanks for letting us know. We'll add it to the file." The file. Even that word felt heavy. It meant this wasn't over. Later that week, the HOA board called for an emergency meeting. Of course I went. The small conference room buzzed with tension, people whispering, papers shuffling, the air thick with curiosity and judgment. When the meeting started, Mr. Adler, the HOA president, cleared his throat. As many of you are aware, Mrs. Thompson has been temporarily suspended from her role as enforcement chair pending investigation. You could feel the wave ripple through the room. Some people looked relieved. Others looked nervous. Then he turned toward me. "And we'd like to thank Mr. Daniels for providing documentation that helped clarify ongoing concerns." Dozens of eyes turned toward me, some smiling, some avoiding my gaze. After months of being seen as the troublemaker, I was suddenly the neighbor who stood up. And yet, all I wanted was normalcy. After the meeting, a few neighbors approached quietly. "I'm glad someone finally spoke up," said one older man, nervously glancing toward Karen's house through the window. She scared half of us into silence. Another woman, holding her toddler, whispered, "She once told me to repaint my door because it was too bright." I was afraid to even say no. It hit me then, it wasn't just me. She'd been controlling everyone. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while: unity. We exchanged numbers, started a new group chat for the residents, without Karen. We called it Real Neighbors of Maple Creek. A few days later, though, the calm cracked. I was walking my dog past her house when I noticed something strange. Her car was back in the driveway. She was home. I froze. Part of me wanted to turn around, but another part of me couldn't. I had to know what she'd say. Sure enough, she stepped out, wearing that same expression, half arrogance, half fury. Well, she said, crossing her arms. "Enjoying your little victory?" I didn't respond. She smirked. "You think this is over? You've humiliated me in front of everyone. You'll pay for that." I could feel my pulse in my throat, but I stayed calm. "Karen, you brought this on yourself." Her face twitched. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. That night, my car tires were slashed. Not all of them, just one. Enough to make a point. The next morning, I found fresh footprints near the fence. And guess what? My security camera had mysteriously stopped recording around 2 a.m. Coincidence? Maybe. But deep down, I knew better. I filed another police report. When the officer came, he nodded knowingly. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried to get back at a neighbor for speaking up. He looked around the neighborhood and added quietly, "Be careful. People like her don't just stop." By the end of the week, the HOA board released an official notice. Due to multiple complaints and pending charges, Mrs. Thompson has been removed from all community leadership positions effective immediately. Reading that email felt like exhaling after months underwater. She was done, at least officially, but something in me couldn't relax. Even stripped of her title, she still lived across the street, still watching, still glaring. One evening, as I took out the trash, I caught her staring from her porch. She didn't say a word, just that same tight-lipped stare, like she was planning her next move. And here's the thing, I started to feel something unexpected, pity. Because as much as she had tormented me, I saw what she'd become, a lonely woman, surrounded by walls she built herself, hated by everyone around her. Was it justice? Maybe, but it was also sad. Still, I couldn't forget what she'd done. The threats, the lies, the fear. Do you think people like that ever change? Or do they just find new ways to control others? Comment below. I'd love to hear your opinion. That night, I recorded a short message for my viewers. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means losing your peace before you find it again. But it's worth it, because when you let fear win, bullies grow stronger. If you're watching this and you've ever dealt with a Karen or a toxic neighbor, remember, pushpin document everything. Pushpin stay calm. Pushpin let the truth speak for itself. And hey, make sure to subscribe. Because what happened next in Maple Creek, even I couldn't have predicted it. You'd think being removed from the HOA board would have taught her a lesson. But for Karen, it only lit a new fire. It started subtly. Flyers slipped under doors. Protect Maple Creek. Stop the corruption. They read, signed anonymously. But everyone knew who wrote them. At first, I laughed it off. But then neighbors began whispering. Rumors spread like wildfire. That I'd bribed the HOA board. That I'd lied to police. That I was destroying the community's harmony. I'd spent months trying to restore peace. Now she was turning everyone against me. One evening, while walking my dog, I overheard two neighbors talking softly near their mailbox. "I don't know. Maybe he went too far," one said. My stomach dropped. That's when I realized. Karen might have lost her position, but she hadn't lost her influence. Tell me honestly, if someone tried to ruin your reputation like this, would you confront them, or let the truth expose them slowly? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how you'd handle it. The next HOA meeting was chaos. Karen showed up even though she was banned. She sat in the back, arms crossed, glaring at me like a storm cloud ready to break. When it was my turn to speak about a landscaping proposal, she stood up and shouted, "You shouldn't even be allowed here. You're a liar." The room went silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "Ma'am," said Mr. Adler, the HOA president, "you are not recognized to speak." But she didn't care. "You're all in on it," she yelled. "You're covering for him." The security guard gently approached, but Karen stepped back, waving papers in the air. "I have proof," she screamed. "Emails, messages, he's manipulating this whole neighborhood." People gasped. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "She's lost it." The guard escorted her out as she shouted, "This isn't over." And honestly, I believed her. The following week, I got a letter. Not from the HOA this time, from her lawyer. A defamation notice. She was suing me for emotional distress and reputational damage. I felt my knees weaken reading it. A lawsuit? After everything she'd done? My sister came over that night. "This is just intimidation," she said. "She's trying to scare you." But I couldn't shake the fear. What if she actually managed to drag me through court? What if the costs piled up? For the first time since her arrest, I started to doubt myself. I called an attorney the next morning. After reading through everything, he smirked and said, "She's bluffing. These claims won't stand." But then he added something that chilled me. "However, she might not care if she loses. She might just want to make you suffer through the process." That's when I realized the kind of person I was dealing with. Not someone who wanted justice, but someone who wanted revenge. Meanwhile, the neighborhood tension grew thicker. Some neighbors stopped waving. Others avoided eye contact. And one evening, A small note appeared taped to my garage door. Traitor, it said. It wasn't her handwriting, but I knew it came from her little circle of followers. For the first time since moving to Maple Creek, I started to hate living there. The place that once felt peaceful now felt poisoned. Have you ever had someone so determined to destroy your peace that even silence feels unsafe? Because that's exactly how it felt. Then came a twist I didn't see coming. The police knocked on my door again. Not for me, but because Karen had filed a new complaint. This time, she claimed I'd been stalking her house and recording her without consent. I was furious. That's insane. I have cameras because she vandalized my car. The officer nodded. We know, sir. We just need to verify everything. Luckily, I had timestamps, footage, and logs to back me up. When they left, one of them said quietly, "She's making herself look worse with every report." But that didn't comfort me, because while she was losing credibility, she was also losing restraint. One stormy night, around midnight, I heard something outside, a faint metallic sound near my fence. I looked out the window and saw a shadow moving. I grabbed my phone, turned on the light, and stepped out. Who's there? The shadow froze, then bolted. I caught only a glimpse, the shape, the hair. It was her. I shouted her name, but she was already running across her lawn. I called the police immediately. They arrived within minutes and took my statement. The officer sighed, shaking his head. She's on probation. If this keeps up, she could face real jail time. The next morning, word spread fast. Neighbors were starting to get tired of the drama, the fights, the tension. Someone started a petition, remove problematic residents from Maple Creek. Hundreds of signatures appeared in days. At first, I felt bad, but then I remembered the fear she'd caused, the sleepless nights, the humiliation. Maybe this was finally justice catching up. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over yet. Because when people like Karen feel cornered, that's when they lash out hardest. A few days later, I received a message on my phone from an unknown number. Meet me behind the park gazebo tonight. I have something you need to see. No name, no context, but I recognized the writing style, dramatic, tense, just like hers. My sister begged me not to go. It's a trap, she said. And maybe it was. But part of me needed closure. I needed to end this, one way or another. So I went. The park was quiet, the lamps flickering in the drizzle. I stood near the gazebo, waiting. Then I saw her, standing there in the shadows, holding a small folder. Her voice was calm, too calm. You ruined my life, she said. Now I'm going to ruin yours. If you were me, would you have met her? Or stayed home and called the cops instead? Drop your opinion below. I want to hear your take. The rain had started to fall harder now, echoing on the metal roof of the park gazebo. Karen stood there, drenched but defiant, clutching that folder like it was her last weapon. I kept my distance. Karen, I said quietly, you need to stop this. It's gone too far. She laughed, not the wild, angry Karen laugh everyone knew, but a hollow, broken sound. Gone too far, she said. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to become that woman everyone hates? Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw something I hadn't seen before, pain. Real pain. Then why keep doing it? I asked. Why call the cops on me? Why the lies, the lawsuits? She hesitated, staring at the folder in her hands. Because you reminded me of him, she said softly. Who? My husband. The words hit me like a quiet explosion. Karen looked away. He left last year. Said I was controlling. Said I was impossible to live with. The HOA was all I had left, my only sense of control. And when they took that from me, when you took that from me, her voice broke completely. I lost it. I didn't know what to say. The rain soaked through my shirt, but I couldn't move. I'd spent months seeing her as a villain. But now, she looked like someone who'd simply broken under her own anger. Karen, I said gently, you could have just talked to someone. You could have asked for help. She shook her head. People don't listen to women like me unless we're loud. So I got louder. I pushed harder. And then, I went too far. She opened the folder and handed it to me. Inside were photos, copies of emails, and notes. I kept everything, she said. Every complaint, every argument, every little thing you said about me. I was building a case to destroy you. I stared at the pile of obsession in my hands. Why are you showing me this now? She looked up, tears mixing with the rain. Because I'm tired, she whispered. And I know they're coming for me again. You called them, didn't you? I hadn't. But before I could answer, Flashing red and blue lights appeared through the trees. Police cars rolled up quietly, tires crunching over wet gravel. One of the officers I recognized, the same one who had come the night she tried to break into my yard. "Ma'am," he called out, "we need to talk." Karen didn't resist. She didn't even move. She just looked at me one last time and said, "I didn't hate you, you know. I just didn't know how to stop fighting." Then she turned to the officers, her hands raised. They read her rights softly under the rain, the same words she once made them say to me. Now, the irony hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. As they led her away, the folder slipped from my hand and scattered across the wet ground. Letters blurred, ink washed away, like all her anger finally dissolving into the earth. Neighbors started gathering near the park edge, murmuring. Someone whispered, "They arrested her again." Another said, "Maybe now we can finally have peace." But I didn't feel peace. I felt something else, something heavier. The next day, I went to the police station to file a statement and close everything officially. When I asked if she'd be okay, the officer sighed. "She's being evaluated. She needs help, not prison," he said. "We'll make sure she gets it." And for the first time, I actually hoped she would. Weeks passed. Maple Creek slowly returned to normal. The gossip faded. The tension lifted. People smiled again. Lawns got trimmed. Kids played outside. But every time I passed her old house, the curtains stayed drawn. Empty. Quiet. The HOA sent out a memo saying she had moved away to focus on personal recovery. No one said more than that, but I could feel the neighborhood finally breathe again. Still, I couldn't shake the thought. What if all this could have been avoided? What if someone had just listened before it turned into war? One Sunday morning, as I was sweeping my porch, a small envelope slid under my door. No name, no address, just a note inside. "Thank you for not giving up on being decent." Okay, that was it. No drama, no apology, just a fragile peace offering from the person who once made my life a storm. I folded the note and tucked it into my drawer, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that even the loudest chaos can end in silence. That night, I sat on my porch under the same sky that once witnessed all the madness. The breeze was soft, the crickets sang, and for the first time in months, it truly felt like home again. I took a deep breath and looked straight into the camera I'd installed months ago, the one that caught everything. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "the worst neighbors teach you the best lessons about patience, forgiveness, and how far peace is worth fighting for." And to everyone watching this, I'll ask you what I've asked since the beginning. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven her? Or would you have fought until the very end? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe, because life has more stories than we think, and sometimes the truth hiding behind our fences is far more dramatic than anything on TV.